It was our third wedding anniversary, and also my husband's company's annual gala. I dressed up, ready to surprise him. But when I pushed open the banquet hall doors, I saw him on one knee, placing the eternal necklace, a limited edition piece I had once longed for, around the neck of my vulnerable stepsister. The entire hall erupted in thunderous applause, showering them with congratulations. My husband looked up and saw me, his eyes filled with nothing but disgust and impatience. "Grace, what are you doing here to cause trouble? Get out!" 3 years later, I returned as the sole heir of a top international conglomerate. My first order of business was to sever the lifelines of his company. His eyes bloodshot, he knelt in the rain before my car, pleading hoarsely, "Grace, I know I was wrong. Please come back, won't you?" The car window slowly rolled down. Behind me, the enigmatic and immensely powerful magnate, rumored to command unparalleled wealth, stepped forward. He gently pried open Marcus's grimy hands, pulling me into his embrace. His tone was light-hearted yet utterly possessive. "Mr. Marcus, please mind your manners. Don't touch my fiancé." It was our third wedding anniversary. It was also the annual gala for my husband Marcus's company, Deep Technologies, celebrating its public listing. I had specifically chosen a champagne-colored mermaid gown he once complimented, spent 3 hours on my elaborate makeup, and held a signed print by his favorite artist, a piece I'd spent half a month's salary to acquire. I wanted to surprise him. Inside the banquet hall, it was a vibrant scene of well-dressed guests, clinking glasses and lively chatter. But when I pushed open the heavy gilded doors, all the clamor seemed to halt instantly. All the lights in the hall converged, and everyone's gaze was fixed on the very center of the banquet hall. There, my husband, Marcus, stood in a perfectly tailored Armani designer suit, looking as handsome as a god. He was on one knee, in a posture of devout reverence. In his hands, he held a sapphire velvet jewelry box. Inside, resting quietly, was the Bulgari top-tier limited edition necklace, the Eternal. The diamonds refracted a dazzling light under the spotlights, a brilliance that also stung my eyes. I remembered how, on his birthday, I had pleaded with him for a long time, like a naive young woman, pulling on his sleeve. At the time, he had simply frowned dismissively and reprimanded me, "Grace, as Mrs. Marcus, you should be poised and sensible, not always chasing such frivolous luxuries. Focus more on the company and the family." Yet now, he was gently placing that very necklace I had yearned for, with his own hands, around another woman's neck. That woman was my nominal stepsister, Lily. She wore a pristine white dress, her innocent face makeup highlighted by a glistening tear that clung precariously to the corner of her eye. She was fragile as a wilting flower, easily able to evoke a strong sense of protection in any man. "Lily, only a girl as pure and lovely as you deserves this eternal dot." Marcus's voice was filled with a tender affection I had never heard from him, so deep it could drown someone. Lily covered her mouth, her eyes brimming with tears as she looked at him, her voice soft and light, feigning just the right amount of hesitation. "Marcus. This is too precious. I can't accept it. My sister. She'll be angry." "Don't mention her," Marcus interrupted, his tone revealing undisguised disgust and annoyance. "On such an important day, you are the star. Wow, marry him. Marry him." The surrounding crowd erupted in thunderous applause and cheers. Everyone assumed it was a meticulously planned romantic proposal. They were congratulating my husband and my vulnerable stepsister. No one noticed me, the legitimate Mrs. Marcus, standing at the entrance of this grand farce, feeling like a complete joke. Marcus finally looked up. Through his bashful smile, his gaze pierced the crowd and landed on me. In those deep eyes that I had been lost in for 3 whole years, there was no hint of guilt for being caught, only annoyance and impatience at his plans being disrupted. He slowly stood up, subtly shielding Lily behind him, looking at me as if I were a hysterical, unpresentable madwoman. "Grace, what are you doing here, causing trouble?" His voice was as cold as ice, every word a poisoned dagger plunging into my heart. "Get out!" I stood frozen, my body turning to ice, my blood feeling like it had congealed. The carefully prepared gift in my hand dropped with a thud onto the floor, the glass of the frame shattering. Just like my love, which had been reduced to ashes over the past 3 years. Lily peeked out from behind him, looking at me timidly. But the fleeting glimpse of triumph and provocation deep in her eyes was clearly visible to me. "Sister, don't blame Marcus, it's all my fault. I shouldn't have come. I'll give you back the necklace right away." It was utterly ridiculous. I looked at this seemingly perfect couple before me, at the sympathetic, scornful, or simply entertained glances of those around us, and suddenly I smiled. I said nothing. Instead, I straightened my back, which had been bowed by 3 years of marriage. I turned, and step by step, with every ounce of my strength, I resolutely walked out of that banquet hall where I had endured such humiliation. Marcus, Lily. From today forward, I, Grace, declare our ties irrevocably severed. 3 years from now, I will make you pay the most excruciating price for what you've done today. Did they think this was the end? No, the real show was just beginning. I don't know how I managed to walk out of that luxurious hotel. The early winter night wind was piercingly cold, cutting like knives against my exposed skin, sending shivers through me. But it was only a fraction of the coldness in my heart. I drove aimlessly, navigating through the bustling urban night. The dazzling lights outside my window seemed like a huge, mocking painting. 3 years of marriage, it turned out, had been nothing but a complete farce. For him, I had given up my identity as the heiress of the Vance family, willing to sever ties with my family. I had wholeheartedly subdued my ambitions and settled into a domestic life, becoming the obscure woman behind him. I believed that if I worked hard enough, sacrificed enough, I could eventually melt his cold heart. Now, it seemed his heart wasn't cold, it was just that I was never the one he intended to warm. Buzz, my phone vibrated frantically on the passenger seat. The caller ID showed the stinging words, husband. I took a deep breath, pressed the answer button, and put it on speakerphone. From the other end, there was no explanation, no reassurance, but Marcus's icy, bone-chilling interrogation, barely suppressing his rage. Grace, have you caused enough trouble? Don't you know what day it is? It's the company's annual gala. So many important partners are here. Lily finally mustered the courage to perform as a special guest, and you just had to show up and ruin everything, humiliating her in public. What were you thinking? My heart felt as if an invisible hand had brutally squeezed it, making it almost impossible to breathe from the pain. I heard myself ask him in an unusually calm voice, Marcus, today is also our wedding anniversary. Have you forgotten? Silence hung on the other end for a second, then his voice returned, even more impatient, I don't have time to argue with you over these petty grievances. Lily fainted from your antics and is now in the hospital. Get over here immediately and apologize to her. What if I don't? Grace, he roared. I'm warning you, don't test my limits. You'd better come here obediently, or we'll file for divorce tomorrow. Fine. I softly uttered those 2 words, then hung up the phone directly, turned it off, and tossed it aside. At that moment, my tears finally burst forth. So, my 3 years of devotion were, in his eyes, just petty grievances. So, for Lily, he could unhesitatingly threaten me with divorce. Marcus, you are truly cruel. My car unconsciously stopped by a secluded riverfront. I leaned on the steering wheel, sobbing hysterically, as if trying to release all the grievances, resentment, and pain accumulated over these 3 years. Just as I was crying myself to near exhaustion, another old phone, long forgotten in my bag and almost out of battery, suddenly rang. It was an unrecognized, encrypted international number. I hesitated for a moment, then answered it. From the other end came an old, familiar voice, with a hint of an almost imperceptible tremor. Ms. Grace. It's Alfred. Alfred was the old butler who had served my grandfather's family for generations. I hadn't contacted him since I severed ties with my family for Marcus 3 years ago. My tears welled up once more, my voice choked, Alfred. Ms. Grace, you've suffered. Alfred's voice was filled with heartache. Master. He's been watching over you all this time. 3 years ago, you said you wanted to choose your own life, independent of the family. Master then instructed me to watch over you discreetly, without interfering. He said if that young man could truly treat you well and make you happy, then all of the Vance family's assets wouldn't matter. But now, it seems Master misjudged the man, and allowed you to endure so much hardship. Ms. Grace, please come home. Alfred's voice held a touch of pleading, Master's health isn't good. His greatest wish is to see you again. And corporation needs you back to take charge. That man, Marcus, he's utterly unworthy of you. You are the Vance family's most precious jewel, you shouldn't be tarnished by such an unworthy man. After hanging up, I sat in the car, quietly gazing at the dark river outside the window, staying awake all night. When dawn broke, I made my decision. I carelessly abandoned the red BMW Marcus had given me by the river, taking only my old phone and documents. Everything I once cherished, everything connected to him, deserved to be left in that ridiculous past. As the plane took off, I watched the city shrink outside the window, a chill settling in my heart. Marcus, Lily. Everything you owe me, I will reclaim, twofold. And your company, Marcus, the one you're most proud of, will be the first target of my revenge. The plane landed at a private airfield on the outskirts of Viridia City, not open to the public. When I saw the line of black-suited security detail waiting respectfully on the tarmac, and at their head, the white-haired but sprightly old butler in a tuxedo, I suddenly realized just what kind of life I had forgotten. Ms. Grace, welcome home. Alfred opened the car door for me, his movements meticulous, his eyes filled with undisguised affection and relief. That title, Ms. Grace, was like a key, instantly unlocking 3 years of buried memories. I was no longer the Mrs. Marcus who had been reduced to ashes before him, having to gauge his mood even to buy a necklace. I was Grace, the sole and true cherished jewel of the Vance family in Viridia City, a power that once sent ripples through the entire business world. The car smoothly entered an expansive estate, vast in its grounds and heavily guarded. With its elegant structures and ancient trees towering overhead, every blade of grass, every tree here, was 1,000 times more valuable than the riverside Marcus had been so proud of. I took a deep breath and pushed open the heavy oak main door. Henry lay in bed. The formidable and self-assured man he once was now looked exceptionally thin and weak. Seeing me enter, a light flickered in his cloudy eyes, and he struggled to sit up. I quickly stepped forward, grasping his frail hand as tears silently streamed down my face. My foolish child. It's good you're back, so good. Henry patted the back of my hand, his voice hoarse. It was my mistake, I shouldn't have let you go. Allowing you to suffer so much hardship. I shook my head, sobbing uncontrollably. Stop crying, Henry said, wiping my tears with his thumb. His gaze sharpened once more. A daughter of the Vance family can risk everything for love, but she must never be humiliated. For every tear you've shed, that ungrateful young man will repay with his blood and his career. He took out a document and a heavy heirloom seal from under his pillow and pressed them into my hand. From today onward, 70% of the shares in the international division of Vance, and supreme authority over the group's operations, are entrusted to you. Henry is tired and old. The future path of the Vance family is yours to walk now. Grace, tell Henry, do you dare? To reclaim everything the Vance family has lost? To crush those who wronged you beneath your feet? I looked at the document in my hands, capable of shaking the global economy, and felt the cold, substantial weight of the heirloom seal. Slowly, I lifted my head, my gaze firmer than it had ever been. Henry, I dare. That night, I shed the modest dress and put on the Dior couture suit Alfred had prepared for me. The person in the mirror had the same face, but her eyes were entirely different. Weakness and subservience were completely washed away, replaced by the calm determination and sharp edge befitting an heir of the Vance family. As I familiarized myself with the towering stacks of corporate documents on the desk, Alfred knocked and entered, a man following behind him. The man was tall and slender, dressed in a meticulously tailored charcoal gray suit. His face was handsome, his demeanor cool and distinguished, and his deep eyes seemed to penetrate everything. Even within the Vance family, accustomed to all sorts of elites, this man's aura was too powerful to ignore. Ms. Grace, this is Mr. Julian, CEO of Hayes, Alfred introduced. He is also the fiancé master. Has chosen for you. Fiancé? I was stunned. Julian, however, seemed oblivious to my astonishment. He walked directly up to me, his deep gaze settling on my face, carrying a hint of imperceptible scrutiny and tenderness. Grace, he began, his voice deep and pleasant, carrying a reassuring strength. Or, should I call you Grace? He chuckled softly, pushing a document towards me. This is the latest equity structure analysis for Marcus's company, along with its major operational lifelines. Henry told me your story. Julian's eyes sharpened, yet his tone remained calm. Business is like a battlefield. To seek revenge, you need the sharpest blade, and I am willing to be your blade. He leaned in slightly, close enough for me to smell the crisp cedar scent on him. It was a scent 1,000 times better than the cheap perfume Lily had left on Marcus. Is your blade sharp enough? I met Julian's bottomless gaze. He chuckled softly, though the amusement didn't reach his eyes. Grace, my blade is not only sharp, but it never misses its mark. I saw the determined glint in his eyes, witnessed all he had laid out for me, and my last vestiges of hesitation and confusion vanished. I met his gaze, my red lips parting as I spoke each word clearly. I want him to lose everything. A flicker of approval crossed Julian's eyes. This was the resolute woman he wanted. So, where should the first strike land? Julian's deep voice resonated in the spacious study like a cello, imbued with a convincing magic. Marcus's company, Deep Technologies, sounds ambitious. His slender finger tapped lightly on the tablet, and a clear equity structure diagram was projected onto the wall. Unfortunately, its foundation is too shallow, and it relies too heavily on external funding, especially for the Celestial, a key municipal initiative it's currently bidding on. The project? I repeated the name, and a fragment I had deliberately ignored surfaced from the depths of my memory. It was a project where I had spent countless sleepless nights with Marcus, organizing documents for him, translating overseas literature, and even leveraging what few personal connections I had left to pave the way for him. He had more than once outlined the blueprint in my ear, saying this was the most crucial step for his career to take off, a milestone to prove his capabilities. Winning this project would launch Deep Technologies to immediate prominence, making it an industry newcomer. Now, looking back, his so-called proving his capabilities was entirely built upon the silent contributions and sacrifices of me, the heiress of the Vance family. Julian observed my subtle change in expression, a flicker of understanding and coldness in his eyes. Exactly. A smart city project led by the municipality, with a bid amount of $5 billion. For a company the size of Deep Technologies, winning this would be akin to an immediate ascent to the top. And losing it, he didn't finish. But I understood the implication of his unspoken words. What I wanted was to personally shatter the very thing he was most proud of. When does the bidding conference begin? I asked. Tomorrow morning at 10. Julian looked at me, as if awaiting my decision. I looked at the business magazine cover photo of a triumphant Marcus on the wall, my heart filled with cold resolve. I'm going. Julian raised an eyebrow, seemingly unsurprised. Good. He picked up his phone and dialed a number, speaking only 2 sentences. It's Julian. For tomorrow's Celestial bidding conference, reserve a VIP seat for Ms. Grace. No superfluous explanations. No lengthy threats, just a simple command. He hung up and looked at me, as if he had merely done a trivial task. There. Tomorrow, you can personally dismantle his path to success. I stared at him, experiencing for the first time such an immediate and visceral understanding of what true power felt like. It wasn't the false prosperity Marcus achieved through scheming and sacrificing his wife. Rather, it was this absolute control, capable of deciding a company's fate with a mere word. Meanwhile, in the VIP ward of Viridia Hospital, Marcus impatiently watched Lily, who lay in bed, pale and unconscious. The doctor had just been by, saying it was merely a temporary fainting spell due to emotional agitation. Nothing serious. Yet, she wouldn't wake up. Marcus irritably tugged at his tie, his mind consumed by Grace's stubborn and indifferent face. He thought she was just throwing a tantrum, and if he ignored her for a day or two, she would meekly return to apologize. After all, it had been that way every time for 3 years. Without him, a lone girl abandoned by her family, with nothing, she simply couldn't survive. Buzz, his assistant's phone call came through, the tone filled with unprecedented excitement and elation. Mr. Marcus. Good news. Absolutely fantastic news. The Celestial's biggest competitor, Glorious, just unexpectedly announced its withdrawal from the bidding due to internal issues. This project is now practically in our grasp. Marcus shot up, his irritation instantly replaced by wild joy. What did you say? Glorious withdrew? Absolutely true. Mr. Marcus, you truly are chosen by fate. Once we secure this project, our company will multiply its value several times over. Good. Excellent. Marcus paced excitedly around the ward, as if he could already see himself standing at the pinnacle of his life. He glanced at Lily, still unconscious on the bed. His trace of impatience vanished, replaced only by triumph. Once he won the project and became a true business magnate, wouldn't that woman Grace meekly come back to beg him? By then, he would make sure to discipline her properly, to let her know who truly ruled this household. Lying on the bed, Lily's long eyelashes subtly fluttered at the news. She slowly opened her eyes, timidly tugging at Marcus's sleeve. Marcus, I think I just heard some amazing news? Marcus leaned down and playfully tapped her nose. His mood greatly improved. You, my dear, are my lucky star. Tomorrow, just wait and see how I secure the Celestial and give you a splendid future. A barely perceptible glint flashed in Lily's eyes, quickly morphing into adoring tenderness. She knew that the more successful Marcus became, the more secure her position as the future Mrs. Marcus would be. As for that foolish woman, Grace, she should have been swept out long ago, but neither of them knew that a meticulously crafted trap, custom-made for them, had already silently sprung open. Marcus, the ladder you thought would lead you to success is, in fact, a guillotine leading to hell. The next morning at 10, at the City Hall Convention Center, the final bidding conference for the Celestial drew the attention of all major media outlets across the city. Marcus, resplendent in a brand new designer suit, sat triumphantly in the front row of the bidding area, basking in the envious and fawning gazes around him. With his biggest competitor unexpectedly withdrawn, the $5 billion project was already within his grasp. He had even prepared his speech for the celebration banquet. Lily, acting like a demure and supportive partner, sat quietly in the observation seats behind him, accepting playful remarks about being Mrs. Marcus with a modest yet charming smile. The host stepped onto the stage and announced the official start of the bidding conference. Next, please welcome Mr. Marcus, CEO of Deep Technologies, to present his company's bidding proposal. Marcus adjusted his tie, confidently standing up and walking towards the podium amidst warm applause. However, just as he was about to step onto the stage, the heavy main doors of the convention center slowly swung open from the outside. Silhouetted against the light, a slender yet poised figure slowly walked in. She wore a sharply tailored white Chanel suit, her long hair pulled back neatly to reveal her slender, elegant swan-like neck. Her makeup was sophisticated and coolly glamorous, her red lips like fire, her gaze calm and sharp. Behind her followed a formidable black-suited security detail, and the legendary figure of Viridia City, Mr. Julian, CEO of Hayes. Her appearance, like a dazzling beam of light, instantly captured everyone's attention and silenced the entire hall. Marcus's foot, poised to ascend the steps, froze mid-air. He was struck as if by lightning, his gaze fixed on that familiar yet strange figure, his blood feeling like it had instantly congealed. That face he had seen for 3 years and grown tired of, was now radiating a dazzling, almost blinding brilliance he had never witnessed before. Grace? How could she be here, and dressed like that? The man beside her was Julian? A wave of murmurs swept through the hall. Who is that woman? Such a powerful aura. To have Mr. Julian personally accompany her. Don't know her, but judging by her presence, she's definitely from a top-tier influential family. Lily also saw Grace. The smile on her face instantly froze, and a sense of foreboding washed over her. Why was this bitch haunting them? The host was clearly bewildered, but still professionally asked, "Madam, may I ask who you are?" Grace didn't answer. Instead, she strode gracefully in her heels, step by step, unhurriedly through the crowd, walking directly to the VIP section in the front row. There, conspicuously placed, was a seat card bearing the words Vance. She stopped before her seat, her gaze coolly sweeping across the room before finally settling on Marcus, who stood rigid by the stage. Her voice, amplified by the microphone, clearly resonated throughout the entire hall. "Excuse me for the interruption. I am here on behalf of Vance, also for the Celestial." Vance? Those 2 words exploded like a clap of thunder in the conference hall. Everyone knew that was the enigmatic behemoth entrenched overseas, capable of easily swaying the global economy. Marcus felt a deafening roar in his head, almost losing his footing. Vance? Grace? This? How could this be? As if struck by a realization, his eyes bloodshot, he recklessly yelled at her, "Grace, what the hell are you playing at? Do you think you can just find any company name and impersonate Vance? Are you out of your mind?" Julian slowly stood up and walked to Grace's side, looking down at the crazed Marcus, his tone light-hearted but utterly imposing. "Mr. Marcus, please mind your words. And also," he extended his hand, gently tucking a stray strand of Grace's hair behind her ear, then stated clearly, word by word, "I forgot to introduce you. This is Ms. Grace, the sole heir of Vance, and also my fiancé." The entire hall fell silent. Marcus was utterly dumbfounded. He stared fixedly at Grace, then at Julian, his lips trembling, unable to utter a single word. Grace watched his distraught, world-falling-apart expression, a cold curve gracing her red lips. She slowly took a document from her bag, placed it gently on the table, and addressed the host on stage, speaking clearly and cruelly, word by word. Furthermore, I formally accuse Deep Technologies' bidding proposal to the bidding committee of serious data fabrication. Data fabrication? Those words were even more direct and lethal than the bombshell of Vance's heir. The entire hall instantly erupted into chaos. Reporters, like sharks scenting blood, rushed forward with their cameras and microphones, swarming Marcus. Mr. Marcus, is Grace's accusation true? Deep Technologies, as an industry rising star, why resort to such despicable methods as data fabrication? Mr. Marcus, what exactly is your relationship with Miss Grace? Why would she publicly accuse you? Marcus was blinded by the camera flashes, his mind a blank. Only one thought echoing frantically, it's over. The raw data for that proposal had been compiled by Grace herself. He had scoffed at her then, wondering what a housewife could possibly know. Now, he realized she had been planning this since that very time. That malicious woman. No, it's not true. She framed me. Marcus roared hysterically, like a trapped beast. It was her. She tampered with the data. She's my ex-wife. She's taking revenge on me. Ex-wife? Revenge? The sheer volume of information made the reporters even more excited. Camera shutters clicking incessantly. Ex-wife? Mr. Marcus, aren't you and Ms. Lily a couple? So it's a tale of a scorned heiress's revenge. How explosive. Lily's face turned ashen at the words ex-wife. She had never imagined that Grace was Marcus's wife. She had always believed Grace was just a mistress Marcus had grown tired of and discarded. She watched the besieged Marcus in a panic, then looked at Grace, who sat composed and elegant in the VIP section, watching as if at a play. A bone-chilling coldness rose from her feet. Just then, the chairman of the bidding committee, his face livid, walked onto the stage, holding a newly printed report. Silence. He rapped the microphone, his voice stern. Following an urgent review by our technical department, we confirm that Deep Technologies' proposal for the Celestial contains serious exaggerations and fabrications regarding core energy consumption and data processing efficiency. In accordance with bidding regulations, we formally announce the disqualification of Deep Technologies from this bid. Furthermore, the company will be placed on the municipal project procurement blacklist, to never be employed again. Boom! Marcus felt his vision go black, his legs turning to jelly. If not for the crushing crowd of reporters, he would have collapsed onto the floor. It's over. Everything is over. Not only had he lost this project that could have launched him to immediate success, but he was also branded with the infamy of data fabrication. His company's reputation set to plummet, and the orchestrator of all this, the woman he had once discarded like a worn-out shoe, was now calmly seated not far away, gazing at him with cold contempt, as if he were trash. Regret. Endless regret instantly poisoned his entire being. He had always believed Grace was merely an accessory, utterly dependent on him and disposable at will. He could never have imagined that the one he had personally pushed away was, in fact, the very ladder that could have elevated him to the heavens. He was wrong. He was terribly wrong. Grace. He pushed through the crowd, stumbling towards Grace, his face filled with agony and pleading. Grace, I know I was wrong. I truly know I was wrong. Please forgive me. Won't you? Let's start over. I'll break up with Lily immediately. I'll give you anything you want. Julian immediately stood up, shielding Grace behind him. He looked at Marcus with icy eyes, his tone a warning. Mr. Marcus, look at yourself. Have some self-respect. Get lost. Marcus, eyes bloodshot and acting like a madman, screamed. This is between me and my wife. It's none of your business. Wife? Grace stepped out from behind Julian, a mocking smile on her face. Mr. Marcus, is your memory failing? We're already divorced. The day you told me to get out, for Lily, that's when we severed all ties. No, we're not divorced. I never signed the papers. Marcus clutched at this last straw of hope. Oh, Grace raised an eyebrow. I've already filed for a unilateral divorce with the court. Given your marital infidelity and long-term cohabitation with Lily, how do you think the court will rule? Marcus froze completely. Just then, Lily, who had been hiding in the back, suddenly rushed forward, crying hysterically as she clung to Marcus's arm. Sister, don't do this to Marcus. He was just confused. It's all my fault. If you have any anger, direct it at me. She began playing the role of the innocent, fragile flower again. But she didn't know that the last straw that breaks the camel's back is often the one closest to it. Marcus slowly lowered his head, his bloodshot eyes fixed on her, boiling with overwhelming hatred and madness. Shut up! He violently pushed Lily away, with such force that she stumbled and fell disgracefully to the ground. He pointed at Lily's nose, screaming hysterically at all the cameras, "It's her! It's all this conniving bitch! She was constantly badmouthing Grace in my ear. She was sowing discord, making me misunderstand Grace. That eternal necklace, I didn't give it to her willingly at all. She stole Grace's design draft, tricked me into believing it was her own design, and begged me to buy it for her. On the anniversary gala, she orchestrated everything, deliberately making me propose to her in public, just so Grace would completely give up on me. This woman, she's been acting this whole time. She's the most malicious, cunning viper of them all. A dog-eat-dog spectacle is always the most entertaining." Grace stood with her arms crossed, watching the drama with amused interest. "Marcus, this is just the appetizer. Your true hell is only just beginning." Scandal of the century. The next day, the entire high society and financial circles of Viridia City were completely rocked by a shocking scandal. Deep Technologies CEO Marcus humiliated by ex-wife at bidding. Data scandal. Stunning. Marcus's ex-wife is sold to Vance. Lived for 3 for love, only to be abandoned. Drama of the year. Marcus and mistress publicly revealing eternal necklace stolen of ex-wife. Headlines. Trending social media posts, all were dominated by the most repulsive and disgraceful faces of Marcus and Lily. In the video, Marcus's frantic screams and Lily's pale face were magnified by the high-definition camera, becoming the biggest laughingstock on the internet. Deep Tech stock price immediately plummeted to its daily limit when the market opened, wiping out countless investors' savings. The company's phones were ringing off the hook. Partners sent termination notices one after another, and banks came knocking to demand loan repayments. The entire company was teetering on the brink of collapse. Marcus locked himself in his office, not eating or drinking for an entire day and night. Like a zombie, he repeatedly watched the video that had completely disgraced him, staring at Grace's cold, regal face. He couldn't believe it. He couldn't believe Grace could be so ruthless. Were their 3 years of marriage all a lie? His hands trembling, he found an unrecognized number, a private line to the CEO's office at the Vance, which he had obtained through connections and at a great cost. The phone rang for a long time before it was answered. A cool female voice said, "Hello, Vance." It was her. It was Grace's voice. Marcus clutched at her words like a last lifeline, his voice hoarse with pleading. "Grace, it's me. It's Marcus. I know I messed up. I truly do. Please, will you forgive me? Come back. Let's start over. I'll break all ties with Lily immediately. I'll give you anything you want. I'll buy you 100 eternal necklaces. 1,000. On the other end of the line, there was a long, deathly silence. Just as Marcus was on the verge of breaking down, Grace finally spoke. Her voice was perfectly calm, as if she were speaking to an unimportant stranger. "Mr. Marcus, you have the wrong number. This is the Vance. We don't discuss personal matters. Only business. If you're calling to beg me to spare your company, let me tell you clearly, it's not going to happen. The humiliation you once inflicted on me, I will repay 100-fold. The career you were so proud of, I will personally reduce it to nothing. As for the eternal necklace," she let out a soft laugh, which, through the receiver, felt like a poisoned ice pick piercing Marcus's heart. "I have no use for such cheap trinkets now." With that, the phone was abruptly hung up. The dial tone buzzed, sounding like the final judgment on his farcical marriage. Marcus slumped to the floor in despair, the last spark of light in his eyes completely extinguished. Meanwhile, in the Vance's top-floor CEO's office, overlooking all of Viridia City, Grace casually placed the receiver back in its cradle, her face expressionless. Julian walked over with a warm cup of milk, placed it beside her hand, and smoothly took the acquisition plan from her grasp. "All right, don't waste your energy on such trash." His warm fingertips brushed her hand unintentionally, offering a hint of comfort. Grace looked into his deep, concerned eyes, and a warmth flowed through her. She picked up the milk, took a sip, and her taut nerves relaxed slightly. A flicker of ruthlessness crossed Julian's eyes. "But it's all right. I'll make him slowly learn what true despair feels like." He pushed a tablet towards Grace. On the screen was a newly drafted document. Deep Tech's cash flow has dried up. They won't last 3 days. I've had Phoenix initiate a hostile takeover against them. Tomorrow at 10 a.m., the signing ceremony. Julian looked at her, saying each word distinctly. I want him to kneel before you and personally sign that contract of surrender. The next day, the rain poured down. Marcus's eyes were bloodshot, his chin covered in dark stubble. He seemed to have aged 10 years overnight. He rushed out of the company and drove to the gates of Vance. He knew this was his last chance. He had to see Grace. He had to kneel and beg her. The icy rain soaked him through. He frantically pounded on the tightly shut iron gates, screaming Grace's name. After an unknown period, a black Rolls-Royce slowly emerged from the estate. Marcus, seeing a glimmer of hope, rushed forward like a madman and blocked the car. The car window slowly rolled down, revealing Julian's handsome yet icy face. Mr. Marcus, is there something you need? I need to see Grace. Tell her to come out and see me. Marcus roared. Julian chuckled softly, opened the car door, and stepped out. He held a large black umbrella, shielding himself and the car's interior from the elements. Grace doesn't want to see you. She asked me to convey a message. Julian looked down at him, as if at a pitiful stray dog. She said, if you want her to let you off the hook, she might. Hope instantly ignited in Marcus's eyes. All you have to do is kneel. Right now. Julian's tone was light, yet it carried the ultimate humiliation. Kneel, and beg her. Kneel? Marcus's body stiffened, and he looked at Julian in disbelief. He, the esteemed CEO of Deep Tech, a former rising star in the business world. How could he possibly? His last shreds of dignity and pride were torn apart at that moment, causing him agonizing torment. Julian seemed to read his mind, chuckled softly, and turned to get back into the car. It seems Mr. Marcus isn't willing. In that case, forget it. No! Marcus watched the car door about to close, thought of his company's desperate predicament, and the future where he would lose everything. All his dignity crumbled in an instant. With a thud, his knees gave way, and he knelt directly in the icy mud, right in front of the countless security cameras at the estate's entrance. I'll kneel. I'll kneel. He lifted his head. Rain and tears streaked his face, his voice hoarse beyond recognition, carrying a humble plea he himself hadn't realized was there. Please, tell Grace to let me go. I messed up. I truly messed up. Inside the car, Grace watched coldly through the one-way glass as the man knelt in the mud, begging like a whipped dog. There wasn't a hint of emotion in her eyes, only deep disgust. She picked up the intercom, her voice icy as it transmitted into Julian's earpiece. Tell him the acquisition will proceed as planned tomorrow. Julian listened, and a cruel smile curved his lips. He crouched down, patted Marcus's soaked cheek, and whispered in a voice only the two of them could hear, Grace said she saw your sincerity. So, she decided, tomorrow, she will personally preside over your signing ceremony. Marcus was struck by lightning, abruptly raising his head, his eyes filled with humiliation and resentment. She lied to him. She played him. She made him kneel just to humiliate him. Julian stood up, meticulously wiping his hands with a handkerchief, as if he had touched something dirty, then tossed the handkerchief onto the ground in disgust. Mr. Marcus, enjoy your last moments as CEO. With that, he turned and got into the car. The black Rolls-Royce sped away, splashing Marcus with mud and water. Marcus remained kneeling, watching the car disappear into the rain, finally letting out a beast-like, desperate roar. Like a madman, he scrambled to his feet and rushed back to the home he had shared with Grace. He had to find her. He had to get answers. But when he unlocked the door with his fingerprint, all he found was an empty, desolate house. Everything that belonged to Grace, her clothes, her books, even the patterned apron in the kitchen that he used to disdain as old-fashioned, was completely gone. It was as if she herself had been completely erased from his life. Only a single box sat on the coffee table in the living room, identical to the one he had given Lily. Marcus's hands trembled as he opened it. Inside lay the eternal necklace he had once refused to buy for Grace. The necklace's pendant had been smashed to pieces. Next to it was a note, with her elegant yet cold handwriting. Marcus, the game has begun. Just then, his phone rang frantically. It was the company's vice president, her voice tinged with sobbing. Mr. Marcus, it's over. Everything's over. All our collaborating project partners have just unilaterally sent termination notices. Our largest overseas shareholder suddenly announced their withdrawal of investment. And Lily. She stole the last bit of liquid capital from the company accounts and ran off. Marcus gripped the phone, listening to the doom-filled pronouncement from the other end, and everything went black. He slowly sank to his knees amidst the shattered diamonds, his palms pierced by sharp edges, bleeding profusely, yet feeling no pain at all. He knew this was just Grace's appetizer. His true hell had only just begun. And who had stolen the money and ran? Did she really think she could escape? In Space's conference room, the atmosphere was as suffocating as a tomb. Marcus sat at the head of the table, his face ashen. Across from him, in the acquiring party's Phoenix representative seats, sat Julian. He sat with his legs elegantly crossed, calm and composed, as if watching a play whose ending was already determined. Mr. Marcus, time is precious. Sign it. Julian's voice was not loud, but it carried an unquestionable pressure. Marcus stared intently at the acquisition contract before him. Its terms were so harsh they were almost humiliating, practically acquiring his entire life's work for the price of scrap. At that moment, the conference room doors were pushed open from the outside. Grace, dressed in a sharp black Chanel suit and heels, slowly walked in, escorted by Alfred and a host of bodyguards. Her appearance was like a dazzling light, instantly drawing everyone's gaze. Marcus was struck by lightning, abruptly standing from his seat, staring intently at her, his voice hoarse. Grace. Grace didn't even spare him a glance. She walked directly to the head of the table and sat down, her gaze indifferently sweeping across the room. It seems, Mr. Marcus, you still have objections to our acquisition proposal? Marcus looked at the woman before him, both familiar and strange, at the suffocatingly powerful aura she exuded, and his heart ached agonizingly. He finally understood what he had truly lost. His eyes bloodshot, he roared at her recklessly, Grace, do you have to be so ruthless? Have you forgotten our 3 years together? Grace stood up, slowly walked over to him, and looked down at him. Mr. Marcus, you have an excellent memory. Then do you remember how, on our 3rd wedding anniversary, you told me to get out in front of everyone? Do you remember how passionately devoted you seemed when you placed the eternal necklace, the one I longed for, around Lily's neck? Each word she spoke was like a sharp knife, accurately piercing his most painful spot. Marcus's face instantly lost all color. Grace picked up the pen from the table and coldly pressed it into his trembling hand. Sign it, and then get out of my sight. Marcus completely broke down, like a puppet with its soul drained. He signed his name under everyone's gaze. Grace didn't spare him another glance. Turning to walk towards Julian, Julian stood up, naturally removed his suit jacket, draped it over her shoulders, and gently drew her into his embrace. Side by side, they walked out of the conference room without looking back, leaving alone, a pathetic mess. In the elevator, Julian handed Grace a document. Lily has been found. Our people intercepted her on her way to the border. The money she stole has also been recovered. However, we discovered something even more interesting on her. Grace opened the document with a puzzled expression, and her pupils constricted sharply. Inside the document was a detailed investigation report about the necklace, her mother's heirloom, and an audio transcript of Lily and Marcus's conspiracy. It turned out it wasn't just an ordinary heirloom at all. It was a key to unlock the vast and enigmatic business empire her mother had left behind. And this vile man had accidentally learned the secret through Lily in the 2nd year of his marriage. For the past 3 years, while enjoying Grace's devotion, he had secretly used every means to frantically try and unlock the necklace's secret, attempting to claim it for himself. The reason he had tolerated Lily's every whim, even going so far as to harm Grace, was because Lily could provide him with more clues about Grace's mother. He thought the necklace Grace pawned was the real one, which was why he was so eager for Lily to flee with the money, hoping to redeem the necklace. Grace felt a wave of nauseating disgust, and her entire body turned cold. Julian took her cold hand, pulled her closer, his voice low and firm. Don't be afraid. He didn't succeed. The pawnshop where you pawned the necklace 3 years ago belongs to the Hayes family. I secured the necklace the moment it arrived. He was married to you for 3 years and couldn't even distinguish a replica of that necklace. How could he possibly be worthy of your mother's true treasure? Alfred knocked and entered at that moment, respectfully presenting a polished wooden box with both hands. Julian opened the box and placed the recovered necklace back around Grace's neck. The pendant touched her skin, bringing with it a cool sensation. Grace lowered her head, looking at the uniquely shaped key pendant on her chest. Her eyes welled up slightly. She finally understood why Henry had opposed her marriage to Marcus all those years ago. It wasn't due to class distinction, but because he had already seen through Marcus's handsome facade to the repulsive ambition and greed beneath. Julian gently lifted her chin, his thumb tenderly wiping away the dampness in the corner of her eyes. His gaze as deep as the ocean. Grace, Marcus is just the beginning of your revenge. Next, what you need to do is reclaim everything that truly belongs to you, and rise to a position even higher than the Vance family, higher than the Hayes family, and I will be with you. Grace looked at him and nodded firmly. Marcus and Lily, did they truly believe that bankruptcy and a ruined reputation were the end? No. The moment they coveted what didn't belong to them, they were destined to plunge into the deepest abyss, and she would be the one to personally ignite the fires of hell. 6 months later, the business world in Viridia City had completely transformed. The former deep tech, along with the name Marcus, had turned to dust, becoming a laughable topic of gossip. Yet the name Grace was at its zenith, becoming a living legend. Not only did she gain complete control of the Vance, but with lightning-fast speed, she successfully integrated the enigmatic business empire her mother had left behind. A business behemoth, spanning finance, technology, luxury goods, and many other sectors, was officially born in her hands. She became the queen at the pinnacle of power, overseeing an empire. That day, Alfred delivered a document containing the final verdict for Marcus and Lily, for multiple charges combined, including fraud, malicious theft of trade secrets, and illegal fundraising. Marcus was sentenced to 20 years in federal prison. Lily, for her part in fraud and theft, was sentenced to 8 years. She had already been sent to a women's correctional facility, where, abandoned by everyone, she was reportedly living a life of misery. Grace looked at the verdict document, her expression without a ripple of emotion, and simply gave a calm instruction: arrange for me to see him. In the prison's visitation room, separated by a thick pane of glass, Grace saw Marcus again. He wore a prison uniform, his hair streaked with gray, his entire body haggard and gaunt. His eyes were clouded and hollow, completely devoid of his former vitality. The moment he saw Grace, a flicker of light suddenly ignited in his lifeless eyes, followed immediately by overwhelming regret and agony. He lunged at the glass, roaring in a raspy, grating voice, "Grace! Grace! You came to see me. I knew you still cared." Grace sat quietly opposite him. Today, she wore a vibrant red gown that complemented her skin as fair as porcelain, radiating an undeniable brilliance. She had even applied exquisite makeup, and a smile on her lips was elegant yet cruel. She said nothing, only slowly raised her left hand, gently shaking the large, dazzling pink diamond on her ring finger toward him. The dazzling sparkle blinded Marcus instantly. "I'm getting married." Grace's red lips parted slightly, her voice as calm as if she were commenting on the weather. "The wedding date is set for this day next month." She watched Marcus's face instantly turn ashen, then added with a smile, "Oh, and by the way, that day also happens to be our original wedding anniversary." No. All strength drained from Marcus, and he slid down the glass to the floor. He stared intensely at the dazzling ring on Grace's hand. Tears and snot smeared his face, crying like a child abandoned by the world. "Grace, you can't do this to me. How could you marry someone else? How could you?" He pleaded incoherently, repented, cursed, until only desperate sobs remained. Grace, however, had no interest in giving him another glance. She stood up, leaving him with a cold, resolute back. "Marcus, 20 years from now, when you get out, this world will no longer have a place for you. You will live out your days alone, consumed by regret and bitterness. This is the true life sentence I have prepared for you." With that, she turned and left. A month later, the wedding of the decade took place on a private island owned by the Hayes family. Though not open to the public, it was the epitome of luxury and romance. Grace wore a couture wedding gown, meticulously crafted by a renowned designer over a year, its skirt adorned with genuine celestial diamonds, which Julian had sought out for her across the globe. It sparkled brilliantly in the sunlight. Arm in arm with Henry, she walked step by step toward the man waiting for her at the end of the aisle, his eyes filled with deep affection and adoration. Julian looked at his rediscovered treasure, the girl he had cherished since childhood who, after all the twists and turns, had finally returned to his side. His eyes welled up with emotion. He knelt on one knee, took her hand, and reverently kissed it. "Grace, my bride." His voice was the sweetest words of love in the world. Thank you for giving me a chance to love you for the rest of my life. From now on, your world will only know sunshine, flowers, and love. I love you. Grace smiled, but a tear of happiness slipped from her eye. She squeezed his hand firmly and nodded solemnly, I do. Under the setting sun, surrounded by the blessings of all their friends and family, they kissed passionately. The ocean breeze gently lifted her veil, completely scattering all the shadows of her past from her life. She had once thrown herself wholeheartedly for the wrong person, fallen into the dust, and was almost consumed by flames. But now, she finally understood. True love wasn't a self-destructive sacrifice, but growth forged side by side. True rebirth wasn't rising from the ashes, but blooming in the sunlight, nurtured by love, with a radiance more dazzling than ever before. Thank you for watching this video. If you have any thoughts about this story, feel free to share them in the comments section. Here is Roses and Love, sharing stories about marriage and women every day. See you tomorrow.